Morning, guys. Friday, April 22nd. What we got going on today is, of course, the same as I've been reporting since, let me see here. It's been nonstop, declining, looking conversation since November. So it's everything that we've been able to offer was hope of a turnaround, but it's been nothing but just keep hammering on the mortgage-backed securities. We're also seeing new updates coming out with respect to housing, talking about the forecast we had before about housing continue to increase, maybe starting to calm down a little bit. They're just now talking about this, of course, with interest rates starting to rise. Now that's putting some pressure on affordability for your people buying homes to live in. But remember, as real estate investors, we're the guys that are taking advantage of this whole situation. The only thing that you have to worry about as far as the market is concerned is whether or not you are going to allow all the negative to hit you. You're going to close your eyes and plow into it and remember all the stuff we're talking about here. There's not going to be a housing bubble that I can tell. The Dallas Fed was talking about that and saying that it's different than 2007, 8 to 2009 because they say it was because of adjustable rate mortgages. Well, they're off the market there. I mean, off the mark there. If you look back, anybody could get a loan, right? And there's way too damn many houses to buy. So what was happening was people were buying houses that were built before they were built and selling them as they were built for more money and flipping these things as fast as they could. And if they were hanging on to them at all, hoping they were going to go up more in value, they couldn't rent them even for anywhere near what their payment was. So as a result of that, when things started to stop and the music halted in that round of musical chairs, they got screwed and the whole thing came crashing down. Well, think what happened after that, right? A lot of builders went out of business. There was like probably a production home builder on every street everywhere in Arizona. As far as somebody who lived in these neighborhoods, you'd have their truck of their home building company. There was a general contractor everywhere building houses. That's how they're making enormous amounts of capital, selling to an insane demand that was really didn't have a really good foundation for the demand. Well, now we don't have near the amount of home builders. We don't have near the supply of massive issues with supply chain, huge demand for housing. Think about those millennials, or I guess, or younger millennials and earlier Gen Zers, if we want to get into generations here, that were watching what was happening there and seeing their parents, having to get, escorted out of their home by the sheriff and having to deal with foreclosures and all the problems that happened. There was a time there that nobody wanted to buy houses that could have been in a position to buy a house. Now, as they're aging, starting families, got jobs, need to park someplace to park their car that they can buy now instead of bummed around. Now they want to buy houses, and we don't have any for them. So there's some interesting things happening there. Also, mortgage applications are down. Of course, they're down. There's a lot of talk in the industry about, man, we're going to have some problems with mortgage companies, maybe not being able to survive this. Well, what's going to end up happening? We're going to end up culling out a lot of loan originators out there, the guys who are doing the 1 to 2 deals a month, guys that were doing almost like a side hustle, if you will, because it was easy during the refi days of 2% for owner occupied. They can convince anybody to refinance at 2%. Now we're getting back to normal market, right? This is not something that's abnormal in reality when you're talking about the interest rates we're in now and that we're going into. So that being the case, you got to work with people that understand what they're doing. Don't deal with those who are that type of loan originator, 1 to 2 a month. Here's the problem. You're going to run into some questions on the properties you buy. You're going to run into some issues that you need to have somebody to talk to through that. If you are 50% of that person's income and you talk to them about what they think for the things that you're concerned with, they're going to do everything they can to talk you into closing. Guarantee it. So with us, we're still cranking along. We're still doing pretty significant numbers. And so that being the situation, it is in our best interest to ensure you look at all angles, and that if you decide not to purchase that we support that and help you to get into something that would make more sense. So just know when you're dealing with professionals that know how to know what this is all about and know what's better for you, we will walk you through that. That is a given thing. You should know that with us by now. But if you're dealing with somebody who you are 50% or 30% of their income, you got to question the motivation when you're talking to them about the deals. Let's look at the market and see what's happening in the mortgage-backed securities. It's going to look very, very similar to what you've seen in the past, right? It's just looking straight down. There's got to be a bottom somewhere in here. Not sure where we're going to hit that. Eventually we are. And when we do, everything that comes down goes back up. It's just what happens. What we've seen in the past, when we see these massive declines like this, you see at least a 50% retrace. We're not seeing a lot of massive declines back here to be able to reference, but there is, when you have to get down into the micro levels of this and look in, you'll see a lot of these, sharp declines, 50% retrace. Eventually, we may see that here and come back up into this range, pushing interest rates back up into, let's say, if I'm just throwing out a rate out there, this is not, may not be the rate you're taking today or what you're experiencing, let's say at 6.25, maybe that rate might go back down into the high 4s, low 5s, something like that. If we get that kind of a 50% retrace, I'm hoping we see that at some point. I can't say for certain. This is definitely some interesting times that we're in. We have the Fed unloading the mortgage-backed securities they have on their books. That's never happened before. Well, it did happen. If you look back here, they unloaded here, but then they loaded right back up. And then they hit this and they loaded really heavily into it. So when they started unloading in 2018, they started, actually it was right up in here, they started unloading. You start to see that unload, and they decided we unloaded a little bit too much. We started putting it back on the books. Then we had a massive issue, and then they dumped a shit ton in and kept cranking money into it. Now they're getting back out of it, all of it, where they were heading at one point, and they did it very, very fast. So they're peeling the Band-Aid off. They're going to go ahead and continue to peel the Band-Aid off as they raise rates on the federal fund rate level. They're talking about 50 basis points this next time around. So let's just go ahead and get that done. Keep moving forward. Nothing for you to worry about. Inflation being so freaked out. You're actually in a pretty solid position if you think about it. Back when we're getting these interest rates here, let's say in the 3s for real estate investments, we were looking at the federal fund rate, or inflation itself. Let's look at inflation. The CPI was at 2%, right? Well, you were still, if CPI is 2% and you're at 3.5%, you were still paying 1.5% on your money. Now CPI is 8.5%, and you're paying, say, 6.25%. Now you're actually making 1.25% to 1.5% on your money. So think about actually 1.75% to 2% on your money. Yeah, 2.5. It's been a week. You guys can do the math. 2.5% between 6 and 8.5. You're making that gap, even if we were focusing on the Fed's bullshit metric of CPI. So think about the flip that's there. That's I've heard that coined as inflation arbitrage or interest rate arbitrage, however you want to look at that. But the real rate of inflation being 16, we know that you're making even more money on that. Don't get scared of the interest rates. You're making a lot more than you think. Thanks, guys, and we will see you Tuesday.